Buttery with its golden brown crust, it's no wonder it's a bakery favorite. I'll start by showing you the basics with a classic lemon pound cake with a lemon glaze. Then we'll move up a level and I'll share my recipe for individual marble bundt cakes with a chocolate ganache glaze. Bundt cakes are simply pound cakes baked in a bundt pan. After that, you'll be ready for the showstopper, a fondant-covered heart cake. This is a professional-looking, polished cake, making use of lemon pound cake in an altogether different style. And for a little something extra, I'll make fondant flowers to put on top of that elegant pound cake. But we have to start at the beginning with that classic lemon pound cake to really get a handle on the essence of what it takes to make a cake that's dense yet delicate at the same time. And it really is all about that first step, beating your butter and sugar together. It's all about the butter. A cup of butter. Now, what's important to note is this is not room temperature butter. It's slightly cool, about 60 degrees. It's the beating of the butter and sugar together that's important to give structure to a pound cake. And to this, I'll add a cup and a half of sugar. I like to add just a good tablespoon of lemon zest. As the butter and sugar are beating together, the friction from the sugar draws out the oils and the zest. You get that nice, even lemon flavor throughout the pound cake. Don't be afraid to mix your butter and sugar on high speed. At this point, you can't overwork your pound cake batter. Now for the eggs, 5 eggs. That's a lot of eggs for a typical cake batter, but when you look at the original pound cake recipe, where its name comes from, it used to call for a pound of butter, a pound of sugar, a pound of eggs, and a pound of flour. Outside of it making a ridiculous amount of cake, it's also not very good. A pound cake depends on the eggs to give the cake a little lift. So you don't actually have to add baking powder or baking soda, but that's why you need the quantity of eggs. And I'll add it gradually, occasionally scraping down the side of the bowl. And now for my secret ingredient, a little bit of sour cream. The tartness adds to the tang, familiar with a lemon pound cake, but it adds that extra level of richness. I want 1/3 cup of sour cream and 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla. I'll just stir that into the sour cream and add this at once. Okay, now for the dry ingredients. I use 2 types of flour in my lemon pound cake, all-purpose, a cup. And then I also use cake and pastry flour, which has a lower protein content. This is also what contributes to a delicate texture in the pound cake. 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Just give that a little sift. Even though this is mixing on a lower speed, I want to finish stirring the batter by hand to avoid tunneling. Now, tunneling is when you get gaping holes through your pound cake, and that is a sign of overmixing. If you feel you may have overmixed your batter when adding the flour, all you have to do is set the batter aside for 10 minutes. It'll relax. When you put it in the pan and then bake it, it'll come out perfect with that delicate pound cake texture. I also find it's important to do that last folding by hand so you can really get to the bottom of the bowl. That quantity of eggs and sugar can sometimes sink to the bottom, and you'll find you get an uneven top to your pound cake. I've got a standard loaf pan here, lightly greased, and in goes the batter. Spread it to make sure it's level. And before it goes into the oven, you want to give your loaf pan a good tap to draw out any air bubbles that might be trapped in there. Now, pound cake likes to take its time to bake. It takes a 325 oven, and I give it anywhere from 65 to 70 minutes to cook all the way through. Now, let's give this a little test to make sure it's done. Take a skewer, insert it in the center. No visible crumbs, so I know it's cooked all the way through. And I actually want to glaze it while the pound cake is just hot from the oven. And this is a simple cooked glaze. I start with 2 tablespoons of water and 3 tablespoons of lemon juice. Also, 1/3 cup of sugar. I'll bring this up to a simmer just until the sugar has fully melted. Now, before I spoon it over top the cake, I want some of the syrup to soak through, just under the crust, into the cake a little bit, So you get that lemon tang. So I just take a bamboo skewer and randomly poke holes. And because the cake is still hot, some of the syrup runs into the cake, and then some of it just stays on top. So you get that nice glaze that sets into a bit of a crust on the top of the pound cake. So I'll set this aside to cool. But I have one that has already cooled completely. That way I can show you inside. So, to loosen it, just run a palette knife along the inside of the pan and give it another good tap to take it out. Beautiful cake. And I like to slice a pound cake using a bread knife. And you can see that beautiful interior, even the little bits of the lemon syrup that have gone through. So it's all these little tips, the nuances, that make a pound cake easy to make. So now that you're comfortable with this, we can move up a level, and I'll share my recipe for individual marble bundt cakes with